Joining us now, Peter Morici. Peter, come on in. It does appear that the Trump rally has stalled out. We've been moving sideways for a couple of weeks now. Why is that?
Well, I think the economic numbers that we've been getting haven't been great, and also this psychological barrier. You know, really the interesting thing would be for it to happen today, so you could spend the next three days speculating whether Stu's absence finally got us over the hump and whether this is really now the Webster achievement.
Oh, boy, don't say that. I don't want to upset him. God bless him, but he would be a little upset if we do. But, hey, let's not jinx it. Let's just kind of ignore it for now and see what happens. Peter, President-elect Trump, we've been talking about this morning. He says the world was a very gloomy place before he was elected. Now we have the economic optimism. And here's what he tweeted. He said, quote, "The world was gloomy before I won. There was no hope. Now the market is up nearly 10%, not really true, and Christmas spending over $1 trillion. I think the market up about 8%, not far off, and $1 trillion for Christmas spending is about right. Is it about his optimism?"
Well, certainly President Obama stole our hope and auctioned it off to the poor. My feeling is that Trump has created a new optimism, but now he's got to deliver.
Yeah.
You know, a tax cut, deregulation. Deregulation is going to be very, very hard in this environment. If you recall, it was President Carter that kicked off deregulation with the phone companies and the airlines, and it really only ended with the demise of Glass-Steagall at the end of the Clinton administration. My feeling is this is going to be very, very difficult to pull off, so it remains to be seen whether the Trump folks have the focus to get it done. My feeling is this can be done. It can be done quickly. For example, a reconciliation bill, which you wrap together all the changes you want and push them through. That can be done.
Yeah, but there is always the danger of over-promising, which every candidate does on the campaign trail. And he did put out some very big agenda items. I mean, you say he can get them done pretty quickly. What's his #1 focus?
Well, I think his #1 focus has to be deregulation. There's limits to what we can accomplish with the tax code, because we're in a box with personal income taxes. You know, we had Reagan cut taxes for everybody. Then Clinton raised them just on upper-income Americans. Bush cut taxes on everybody, and Obama raised them just on upper-income Americans. So now we have a tax structure in which Romney's right. Most of the taxes are paid by the top, 10%. So how do you cut personal taxes without being called someone who, robs from the poor and gives to the rich? Now, we can rationalize corporate taxes, and that would be very useful. But deregulation is really where the news is. My feeling is we're all tied up in knots, can't get anything done because all of the bureaucrats biting at our feet. And now is the time to get rid of them. Not just deregulate, start slimming down the agencies. I can think of places in the Labor Department, in the Education Department, and in other places where we not only want to get rid of regulations and programs, we want to cut the head count.
Well, part of draining the swamp, I guess, Peter. I wanted to get your thoughts on President Obama saying that, look, he would have beaten Donald Trump if he was allowed to run for a third term. I can get your response already. Trump.
The university is full of professors like that. If I hadn't decided to be a professor, I bet you I would be Treasury Secretary right now. My department is just full of people who are going to head labor, Treasury, this and that. And you got to remember, Barack Obama's only work experience before becoming president was as a law professor at the University of Chicago. Well, hubris is pretty big. That's a pretty big quantity there. After that, he was a state senator who ran for the U.S. Senate. Then he was a U.S. senator who ran for president. I mean, he never really had any work experience other than being a professor. So he's kind of retrogressing back into his previous role. It's absolute nonsense.
Well, it is, and no one's riding on his coattails if he's that great, because I mean, the Democrats have lost nearly 1,000 seats on the state and federal level. As he leaves, that's a big part of his legacy, the fact that the GOP is doing very well across this country.
Well, think about it. Clinton won a majority in California and New York of 4+ million. In the other 48 states, Trump won the majority. He won over 3,000 counties. You've done these data points over and over again here.
Yeah.
If he is so popular, why did his anointed successor do so badly? Let's face it, you know, Trump was not a dream candidate. You might like his ideas, but he was a hard sell because of, you know, other issues. But, I mean, why didn't they do better? The answer is they promised another term, and that was defeated. So my feeling is, you know, he can't anoint Clinton as his successor and then make this claim. What this really comes down to is this vain man cannot exit gracefully. Whether it's the issues with Israel or his wife going on television saying, oh, all hope is lost. Well, you know, they're going to live right here in Washington, a bicycle ride from my house. I want them to come on down for coffee, and I'll talk to them about why they can still have hope. I mean, just a short drive, 5 minutes away. They can come on January 23rd to my house at 8 o'clock, and I'll explain to them how the real world works.
That's quite an invitation. I'd like to come to
Well,
that,
I think it's very reasonable, don't you? Or I'll send them to Stu's house.
No one goes to Stu's house, I'll just say that. Look, last one,
really?
Peter. Let me bring this up. You recently wrote an article, and here's the headline. The measure of Trump's presidency, restoring growth, is center stage, and so is China. So, Peter, we know that China, we've been talking about this morning, just sailed its first aircraft carrier, albeit a 1998 used Russian one, past Taiwan and into the disputed islands in the South China Sea. Quite a show of aggression, certainly for Taiwan. What do you make of that?
Well, they're certainly pushing the envelope. You know, if Trump comes in and just imposes a tariff on China, it won't cut it. They'll push back on American investors in China, people like General Motors. They'll make life miserable for Taiwan economically. They can do things to further enable North Korea. But most of all, they can bully their neighbors in the South China Sea. We should not be foolish about this. We have to recognize that we need an all-fronts confrontation with China to put China back in the box. And that may begin with the tariff to try to renegotiate our trade arrangements, a good and noble thing to do. However, if we think we're going to get by just challenging them on economics and not dealing with the South China Sea, we're crazy. But by the way, I volunteered to take my rowboat out there and challenge that aircraft carrier to a race. And I would predict after the third or fourth mile, its old Russian diesels will break down. And I've just cleaned that up.
Like a 1988 Ford Probe. It's going to be floating around in the sea, you know, with the old Russian...
No, like one of those 1932 vehicles that they still drive around as new cars in Moscow.
We'll have to leave it. I love it. Peter Morici, thank you so much. We appreciate it.